You think you understand money? You think you're going to damage the stock market? You think I give a shit about share price? I think there's a level beyond all of this. And they're the ones who truly are running things, and they truly have no influence. And in fact, the harder they damage the economy and the more damage they do to money, the more people are dependent on governments to eat. That's where communism comes from, right? The more poor we get, the more you need the government just so you have food in your mouth. How can you resist the government if they feed you? You can't. So and I sound pessimistic, and I'm not pessimistic. And I do believe the answer to all of these things is free thinking and truth and God and communities standing up for themselves and changing the general consensus. I do believe that. Because to a degree, although we talk about people who run the world, to a degree we run the world. Because our tolerance level is what runs the world. There's more of us than them. So to a degree you say, who's in charge of the world? Well, I like to say, well, we are. Because it's all about, we're the abused wife in this relationship. How much crap are we going to put up with? We set the limit. They're going to come at us with everything they can, right? We set the limit. But the problem is they try very, very hard to, one, increase our limit to the max, which is tolerance, and two, to divide us to the point where we don't ever unite long enough. I love what happened in Glendale, what you just told me about. That should be happening in every single school across America, all of them.
Oh, they would love it if you retweet the video for them and give more exposure.
I will do.
You know, when you're saying this, I'm reading a book right now, Robert Moses. I don't know if you know who he is or not, Power Broker. This is a guy, it would be a very interesting guy for you to study. This is the guy that built New York, okay? And he came up and hated, complicated person, misunderstood. The more they would push him back, the more he stood up. The more they would say, no, this is not fair what you're doing, the more he would even say, I'm going to go even more extreme. And so if in New York you mention the name Robert Moses, there's going to be a camp that's going to say scumbag, racist, white supremacist, all this stuff. And there's a side that's going to say, this guy built a bridge, this guy did this guy did that. He would make it so hard for a certain community to go to the nicer community. He would put the the bridge so low that trucks couldn't go through because he didn't want the bad people to go into this. Like he was that sharp. And one time in the book, they talk about how Robert Moses, he says, look, the one thing about Robert Moses, he could give a shit about money. He could give a shit about, it was all about his influence over. So I agree, there's certain people that don't care about money. They're more driven by control, influence, all of that. The part that, we're talking about the movie Fury, Vinny, and you give me this whole thing about Fury, the scene where Shia LaBeouf is reading out of the Bible and he's crying while he's reading this. And then, if you want to text me and then afterwards, you see Brad Pitt quotes exactly what scripture it was, but they never showed how much faith he had. And the whole point was, I'm ready to die. We know we're here. This is going to be happening. We're in the attack. I think the people, there's a part about Trump. I had a girl on, Whitney Webb. I don't know if you know who Whitney Webb is. We had her on. Okay. Yeah. And we start talking about different things. And I've been having a lot of weird guests on lately. And making a comparison between the Kennedy family and Trump pisses a lot of people off. But those two families, forget the fact that one's a Democrat, one's a Republican. They were both anti-establishment. They were both anti-military industrial complex. They were both anti-CIA, anti-FBI, anti-all of this stuff, right? We saw what happened with Kennedy. We saw what happened with Reagan. We saw what happened with Lincoln. All these guys were anti-establishment guys. We saw what happened with Trump. The part about Trump that, made the other side uncomfortable is, okay, we can kill the guy. That's been the strategy for a long time. You can't really do it today as much because they fear one thing that they're the most jealous and envy. You know what that is? They do not want to build a martyr. They fear building a martyr because that's the ultimate high that they want to get. They do not want to build a martyr, right? So, okay. We're going to humiliate the crap out of you. We're going to embarrass the crap out of you. We're going to publicly try to do this. We're going to come in between you and your kids. We're going to go get your daughter to be more LGBT. We're going to get her to be on this side. And we're going to pin this. That's the strategy. We're going to put break the entire family apart, right? And he still stands up there. And to them, it's like, what the hell do we need to do for you to, just sit down and be quiet, not willing to do it?
That's right.
Do you think, again, going back to it, more of those types of men and women who are misunderstood and complicated stories, they're not perfect, far from it. More of those guys are the ones that are saying, it's just not going to happen on my watch, man.
And that's what we need. And by the very nature of being the kind of person who's principled enough to risk his own personal situation in life, if you have principles that strong, you're going to be disliked by some people. You're never going to have a person who is principled enough to take risk to his public detriment for the good of what he believes in, who's liked by everybody. That's a logic fail, right? Because he has principles which are hard lines, and people exist across the entire spectrum. So there's going to be people who exist outside of those lines. That's what I liked about Trump. He's not perfect, of course not, but he says what he means what he says. I actually disagree with him on many things. But he says what he means what he says, and that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of a man who says what he means and means what he says, because he can't be bought, because he's principled. He can't be bought. Even now, if they were to come to me with $100 million and say, we'll sponsor you with this company, it's $100 million, you just have to shut up, I'd say, no, I don't want your money. I don't want the money. I don't need money. There's nothing else to buy. I bought everything. I don't need it. My principle's worth more. So, and that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of principles, and it goes back to the original point. They're trying to remove all of our morality, all of our baseline understanding of things.
Connect is an application which allows you to take a minute to connect with influencers from all around the world. My name is Andrew Tate, and I'm available to speak directly to you on Connect.
That's how they inject you with the slave mind. That's exactly what it is, and you're right. History has always been that way, and now it's under conscious assault. I've never said this before. I've never even thought this before. This is a brand new thought for me. But I would like to think in times of old, in history, perhaps everybody was the same. Everybody was principled. Everybody had parameters, but they were different parameters. Perhaps they were competing ideas. But I think in the modern world, it's not so much competing parameters. It's just people who believe in things. And people who don't believe in anything besides what they're fucking told, that changes every day. You have the empty brains, the slave minds, and the people who actually stand up for something. And the free thinkers. But the slave minds, you can't say, well, they believe in a different ideology, because they don't. They believe in what they're told to believe in on that particular day. It changes. They don't have any true core belief. They just repeat. I talk about the Matrix all the time, and people say, why did you choose that terminology? And I chose that terminology because it is perfectly accurate in describing exactly what is happening. The Matrix is a computer program which is designed to control your mind so that your body can be used to power the machines. That's exactly what happens when they make you watch the news. To control your minds, you continue to use your body to work some garbage job and suffer from inflation and power the machines. The machines being soulless people who are in charge of the world. But there's also a million other different ways you can compare the Matrix to the real world. In the Matrix, they say anybody can become an agent at any time. If their mind is not unplugged, they become an agent. If their mind is not freed, they turn into an agent. You can see that in real life. Mention COVID to an NPC. Mention Trump to an NPC. You can sit and have a perfectly cordial, normal conversation with somebody for an hour and be fine. And you can mention one of the particular subjects which they are programmed to hate by the Matrix itself, and they will turn into an agent in real time. And you will see them now start to genuinely, emotionally dislike you as a person. They were your friend for an hour. Yeah. Now they hate you. They will turn into an agent. COVID was perfect. I would sit with people and we'd all be friends until I mentioned that COVID's garbage. And they would, now they're an agent. What do you mean COVID's garbage? My friend's grandma was 99 and she got sick. Okay. Sorry, that doesn't change my view. And they change. And the Matrix is actually a perfect, absolute explanation of what's happening. And Morpheus says it, if your mind's not freed, you can be one of them. And that's what's happening. And this is why we don't have competing sets of parameters which are trying to argue about which is the best way to run the world. We have people with parameters who believe in family and love and God and tradition and taking care of yourself and taking care of others. There's people with moral standard, and there's people with none. Zero. Empty vessels, agents who are programmed on any given day of what they're supposed to care about. These people can't tell me they care about things. That's what's most annoying about my position, because it's absolutely and utterly weaponized virtue they use against me. The people who hate me because, one, I truly believe, and I know this is arrogant to say, but I feel like I have to say it. There's definitely a massive jealousy implement. If I wasn't so tall and rich and good looking, it wouldn't be happening. They don't fucking like me. They don't like me because I remind them of the jock at school that took their girl. That's part of it, right? They don't like me personally. So it's true. So they try and find an attack vector. And what happens when you have somebody who's monumentally successful across all realms of human endeavor? The only